welcome to Audius's Behind the Beats, episode 5. In each episode, we'll be talking to musicians and DJs from all walks of life about their experiences in the music industry. From up-and-coming artists to established industry veterans, we'll be exploring the diverse and fascinating stories of the people behind the music. On today's episode, we're joined by music producer, instrumentalist, songwriter, sound architect, educator, and DJ, ill-Esha. We'll be talking about ill-Esha's music, her sonic science experiments, her experience as a professional music producer and headliner performer, as well as what is coming up next for this talented artist. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by Behind the Beats. Let's go. Firstly, hello, ill-Esha. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's so great to have you here. ill-Esha, we just love your music here at Audius, and we'd love to know what got you into the music industry.
It was really an accidental thing. I've always been into creativity. I like to make things. I'm not really a watcher as much as I am a participant. So I've always kind of been into music. I have a musical family, and I did things like choir, band, and piano lessons. And after that, I just discovered electronic music in high school, fell in love with it, and just immediately thought, I need to be a part of this. And I actually started out as an MC, which a lot of people don't know. Got into it through vocals, rapping, and then DJing, and producing came last, mostly because at the time it was still pretty expensive to have samplers and hardware, and we didn't have all these flashy plugins like we do now. So that was my path.
Where are you most passionate in the music industry now?
Oh my gosh. I love all aspects of it, but I think one thing that I keep coming back to is collaboration and mentoring. And I just really feel like music has always been the language that connects me to the rest of the world. I was a classic sort of nerd, and I was bullied a little bit, and I always felt like I didn't understand the world and they didn't understand me. And music was just such a open gate to connect and to love and to make people feel really good and feel like I had a part in that. And so I think my passion now is both collaborating and mentoring and just seeing how much being inspired and being creative can light up somebody's life.
That's so beautiful. It's so true. Like, music's a universal language, and it helps connect us all together. I just love how diverse your background and experience is. And I love your artist name. I was going to ask you, how did you come up with your name?
Well, to be honest, I've had it for a really long time, and I'm definitely ready to try some new things. But, my real name is ill-Esha, and I was a 14-year-old hip hop MC, and I used to be very shy, which is a bit of a paradox. And I still actually am, but I used to rap sort of in very isolated spaces with just one or two friends. And so I remember actually I was in a grain elevator with a friend of mine who was a graffiti artist, and he was painting outside, and we were just kind of rapping together in the elevator. And he was just like, "Oh, that's ill-Esha." And it just kind of blended together, and we were like, "Oh." So I still feel like it sounds like a 14-year-old hip hop MC, but it's been my name for a really long time.
I had no idea. I'm actually glad that we asked that question, because I've been kind of curious too. I didn't think that was those were the roots though. That's ill. I want to talk about the whole mentoring and community aspect. Anyone that knows you, it's no secret that you give so much to the community. I want to talk specifically about EDMP, especially the Discord and Reddit community. Do you mind just kind of giving everyone a breakdown of what EDMP is and your involvement there for anyone that might not be aware?
Yeah, absolutely. So EDM production Reddit community is quite a large community. I think we're getting close to sort of 1 million members, and they've always had an official Discord, but at the time that I found it, it wasn't super developed yet. And I just saw potential because, music production is an amazing thing and collaborating is an amazing thing. But the thing with Reddit is, if you're trying to get a production tip, you don't want to make a post and wait 2 days for somebody to answer it for you, right? It's a little bit more of I need real-time help. So I thought, what an opportunity to sort of take a community that exists and is growing and connect it with some more real-time feedback. And as I said, I was a nerd. I have roots in old school chat rooms, IRC, ICQ, AOL Instant Messenger. So I'm actually sometimes more comfortable in text than, at a party trying to talk to people. So it was the perfect place for me to sort of sit, observe, and just, of course, get involved in. And we've grown it over the last, I guess it's been 6 or 7 years. Before the Discord thing really started blowing up, we just started building it as a real-time community for people all over the world, of all ages, of all identities, just kind of making it a safe place for you, no matter what your skill level, no matter how shy you were. And that's another thing, not everyone is extroverted. And I think in the traditional music scene, it's really easy for these talented, quieter people to get overlooked just in favor of the people who love to party and love to talk to everyone. And so I've always been a champion of the shy person because I am that person. And I thought, what a great place to make people collaborate and talk to each other and just be social. And I also think that that's missing in social media. I like to call it me island. We have all these things which are based on one-way output of look at me, look at what I ate for breakfast, look at my new release. But in a community like this, you have to exchange information. You have to be helpful. You have to participate in a conversation. If you just walk in and say, look at me, it doesn't fly here. And so I think it's a really important thing to nurture in this world where we've just all become on our own me islands, to remember that it's bigger than that. And you can get such amazing things from working within a community. So today we have something like 20,000 members, but don't be intimidated because there's usually not that many people online at once. And, they're all working on their DAWs, doing their thing. And we just pop in. You have a question, somebody will answer it. You want to talk to somebody about the gym or your favorite recipe? We got that too. So we try to be a place where just anyone who is passionate about making music with some kind of electronic method can help. And, don't be scared by the EDM part. That's just the legacy from being part of the Reddit. So we love all types of music.
I think that's the reason why I like Reddit and Discord so much more than like Instagram, for example, specifically, is because it's much less of a me island. It's like community is at the forefront there. You can't just like be spamming Discord all by yourself. You need other people there around. I'm going to steal that me island from you, by the way.
No, it's true. It's like the democratization of education. And like what you said, it's like as a music producer, it's so hard to find a mentor. So like, it's amazing what you're doing, like having access to a community like that and just making friends online, especially if you're shy, there's a real strength to that. And now before we get into all the amazing music and collaborations and features as well that you've been involved in, I would really love to discuss with you a topic that I know is also very close and personal to your heart. It's no secret that the concept of, making it as an artist, it can be quite disenfranchising for artists in terms of making it their full-time job or full-time career. And, it can impact mental health. So do you agree that there's like this weird stigma surrounding the music industry where like, the algorithms are like influencing the outcome of artists' careers, or at least our perceptions of ourselves? And are there many more ways, to become successful in the music industry and to connect with your audience?
Absolutely. And, I read this really great book that I would recommend to anyone. I can't remember the author right now, but it's called The Death of the Artist, and it's very recent. And it kind of breaks down how all of these actually big platforms, not even the labels, but if you think of like Amazon and Google and the people who are controlling the servers where we upload our data, they have taken control and they have turned us all into these creators as an illusion. It's like anyone can be a producer, take this course, do this, pay for this premium service, unblock the gate, and here you are. And I think that that's been so damaging. And, music has always been a schmooze thing. Back before all of this, you had like the radio playlisters and you've always had to go and network. But at least there was sort of a human aspect to it. And you weren't just like feeding iPhone farms in China to get your bot clicks. And, the craziest thing for me is when I see the bots starting to talk to each other on all these like fake comment platforms. And I'm just thinking, where the soul is just gone. And one of the interesting things that this book goes into, besides all of that, is that stigma exactly. Like, for instance, if you take acting, the whole thing of waiters and being actors and, actors having these jobs as they work on their craft, that's totally accepted. It's almost a fable and it's totally fine. And yet the weirdest thing is when you talk to musicians or when people talk to them and they find out they have jobs, they kind of pat them on the back like, oh, maybe someday you'll make it. And making it is just seen as this apex of only doing music, as a touring DJ or as something else, as a producer. And that's supposed to be making it. And I have to disagree after being somebody who has spent a lifetime of this being full-time. I've been full-time music since I was 25, which was more than a decade ago. And you know what? I have never been so happy as this past year when I finally got a job. And that being said, is a sound design job. So I am still doing my passion and I'm still doing what I really love. But depending on your personality type, making it as a touring DJ or producer is not it, right? Like sometimes tying your livelihood and tying dollars to your creative output is the most poisonous thing you can do. And for somebody like me who is very thoughtful and loves to connect with people and see how they react, it just kills me to sit there and measure it. And as this social media started coming in, I got more and more miserable. And I got to this point where I was really questioning myself, because the thing that I loved the most, I didn't enjoy anymore. And I truly was scared of, what do I have to live for? Kind of like this very dark space of this is my heart and I don't feel it. And I'm so happy that I realized that actually I needed to separate myself from this. And people, the way that they've reacted, it's like, oh, are you giving up on music? Are you still going to do this? Are you retired? And the answer to all those things is absolutely not. I've actually never been more inspired to make music. I'm a little bit taking a break because I'm still in the middle of moving across continents and my studio is in a crate on the ocean, but it's like killing me with anticipation. I have so many ideas. I have so many new collaborations. I'm trying styles that I was sort of too scared to make because I only had 2 days a week that I wasn't on tour, and I had to make the 2 a.m. banger for the Saturday night club, and it had to be exactly like this. And so the funny thing is I'm freer than I was before. I feel like I kind of became a slave to touring. And this is not a universal experience. I mean, there are people I know who have a totally different personality type, and they are extroverted and they love, this and that. And for them, it really works. But again, everybody has different motivations and different things that make them comfortable or not. And so I guess I'm calling out again to the shy people. You don't have to force yourself out on the road. You don't have to have 20 million followers and get on this playlist. Maybe that's not your way. Like, the way for making it is to feel absolutely creatively inspired and be making the music that you want to make. And hopefully, managing to be comfortable, that's a different story, and finance, obviously we need to make money. And if you can hone your skills and really isolate what makes you happy and find a place for you to be, then that is making it. That's how I feel. And I talk about it a lot because I really see a lot of young artists suffering, especially in my Discord. The craziest thing is they come in and they say, hi, I want to know how to do my branding and like what my image should be. And I say, okay, what does your music sound like? Oh, well, I haven't actually finished a song yet. And that just breaks my heart, and I always tell them the same thing. I say, go make 100 songs. A lot of them are going to suck. Maybe all of them are going to suck. And eventually you're not going to suck. And once you stop sucking and you feel like you found your thing, then you can start thinking about how you want to market it. But people don't look at it that way anymore. And it's so toxic to so many people. So yeah, if you're one of those people out there going, oh gosh, I hate social media and I don't want to do this, you're not alone, and it's not wrong, and it's not making it if you choose to not do it that way.
I read an interview, must have been like 7 years ago, from XXYYXX. And they were like, how'd you start making music? And he's like, I played around for a long time, but I finally made 100 crummy songs. And that's when I finally learned how to do everything. And so back when I was producing a lot more, that's what helped me. I finally did a 100-day beat challenge. And by the 35th day of a beat every day, I was working on an EP. I kind of got rid of the challenge because I can actually finish these songs in a day, even if they're not amazing, just being able to do something and forget about it and move on. And I think moving on is such a hard part. I have so many friends that will spend a year or years on a song, which those songs are amazing, but then you lose so much time just focusing on one single piece, But amazing advice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's like pearls of wisdom. I really, really resonate and appreciate that. And it's so true. Music's meant to be joyful, and it's putting the pressure to make that a full-time living can just suck the joy out of the whole experience and journey. And, as you said, if you haven't finished one song and you already think about branding, it's time to go back to the drawing board and put in the hours and just enjoy that process. So thank you for sharing all that. And I know you mentioned that you strongly care about, mentorship. And as you just said, embracing a holistic approach to music and artistry. what gives you the most joy about mentoring music producers and artists and nurturing their creative imagination?
Well, there is just that sparkle in someone's eye when they finally make something that makes them feel completely at joy and peace with themselves. And I've actually seen some people grow up on my Discord. They've come in when they were 13, 14, 15, and over 5 or 6 years, they get a little more confident. They get a release. We do feedback streams quite a lot. I was really, really lucky to have spent a year recently with one of my mentors and idols, honestly, which is Matt Black from Cold Cut. Very, very legendary duo and the founders of Ninja Tune Records. And I learned so much from working with him because he's, older than me. He's a couple generations above, and he still puts so much energy into supporting creative innovation, new technology, little known artists, and just lifting people up and giving them opportunities. And, we started doing these feedback streams as the root of creating this channel, this learning channel with him. And we just kept doing them because we realized in this world, so many people just want someone to listen. And there's so many paywalls and there's so many scams and, so much desperation around it. And all we did was take this simple couple of hours every once in a while and say, hey, we're going to listen and we're just going to give you our thoughts. And the connection between not just us and the people, but each other within the community, we notice people coming into the streams and just becoming friends and being loyal to show up to hear their friends' songs. And that's real community. And that's something that I feel like we've lost a little bit in modern society. So I think when I see not even just me inspiring somebody, but them starting to work together and inspire each other, that's really the most magic moment.
That is truly the magic. And like you said, like working with other people as well, because, being a music producer, sometimes it can be a quite lonesome experience if you're producing on your laptop. And just by, getting feedback and collaborating with others, you just learn and grow in the experience. And in fact, this leads me really well into the next question, because it's truly a feat you've collaborated with so many amazing producers in the intelligent electronic music world. And looking at your discography, you've worked with Anti-Serum, Freddie Todd, Ill Gates, Stereotype, Mr. Bill, the list goes on. Like these are some of the, our team's favorite artists, and I'm sure a huge portion of our community's favorite artists too. Can you tell us like a fun story about either collaborating with one of these artists or collaborating with a producer in general, a story that a few people would know but sticks out in your mind?
Well, I could have infinite funny stories about some of them. I mean, especially Bill. If anybody who's a fan of Mr. Bill knows, he's quite a personality and he's always stood out. But working with both him and Ill Gates, both of them being teachers and mentors as well, it's always such an experience because they just give so much back as they work together. And as far as like super funny stories, it's more like a collective energy of working with them because Bill will always say these hilarious things. To be such a joker, but then when you get into the process with him, it's just so magic to watch him use techniques that I wouldn't even think of. And I think that we work together so well because we're very opposite. I'm a very deliberate sort of melody maker and composer, and he's a very deliberate, purposeful randomness technician, I would say. So he's really great at cooking up all these machines to generate beautiful chaos. But the first time I met Bill was actually at an underground like desert party in Israel. And the funny story, not necessarily directly from that, but around that is it was his first time there. I was actually there. It was one of my cousin's wedding. I have family there. And we played this party, super fun in the middle of nowhere. And shortly after that, I just can't forget this because Bill went to the Wailing Wall, which is, this very sacred place in Jerusalem where you're supposed to put in your prayers and God can hear you. And he put in like his SoundCloud link to the wall. And then a few weeks later on social media, it just makes a post like, God wrote back. And it was like this note like, yo, I love the tunes, like just, and that is so Bill. And so I would say like every experience with him is like that. And Dylan Ill Gates is similar. And the funny thing about Dylan is he's done so much live streaming and so much time-based stuff that even when he's not on a clock challenge, it's like you're always just on with him. And it's really inspired me to actually be a little less lazy, because if I'm alone, I might just like doodle around with a melody, like cry on the keyboard a little and like look at a cat picture. But with Dylan, he'll be like, all right, let's go. We got like 10 minutes. How much can you do in 10 minutes? And, sometimes I will stop by his house if I'm in town and we only have like 45 minutes and he'll be like, let's go, let's make a track. And I want to say, oh, Dylan, we don't have time. We got to say, he's like, no. whatever we can do now. So I think working with both of those guys has just been so amazing because they put so many gentle challenges for me as a producer to learn from and for me to challenge my own processes. And it's really taught me as well to just be limited on purpose, to be creative sometimes, and also to break my own mental limitations and do things a different way than I would want to do them. You know, if you're the type of person who always uses your own special DAW and your own plugins, it's really great, especially to work with somebody else who uses something totally different and to just force yourself to say, okay, what can I do without my little comfortable routine in my chair and my stuff? So I've had a lot of fun with everyone I've collaborated with.
I think that also kind of makes sense as to like why your music is so diverse, right? Especially with your collaborations. You always like have your sound that comes through there, but there's just so much diversity. And I think, using other people's equipment and also like bouncing those ideas off of other people. You really shine with other people.
Thanks.
I've got a question for you. So when we were talking about this whole podcast over the last like few weeks, you mentioned something about, what was it? You mentioned playing on top of a crane at ADE with Abstract and Tennyson. I need to know what that was all about, because that sounds crazy.
Yeah, and this is actually kind of another sort of good connection to what we've been talking about already about collaborating, community, and mentorship. So, you know, I've done a lot of things, and some of them have been more traditional ways of networking, playing a gig and meeting somebody. But in this case, when Ausla was starting their Discord years ago, they kind of connected with me a bit because we already had EDMP going, and they were sort of just like asking for support and hanging out. And so I would just go in there and hang out with people in the voice chats and participate in the community. And we were just talking one day, and they were just like, hey, ill-Esha, do you want to come play our party at ADE? And I'm just like, are you kidding? Yeah, I'm like, say yes, and I will book that flight right away. And so, yeah, it was a crazy lineup. It was Tennyson, Abstract, Joyride, Jam Supernova. The only bummer was that Skrillex was not there because he had to play in Japan. But Cohen Sound was also there because they were doing a different show. And I showed up with Hero Bust. So it was just a really fun assortment of people. And it was in this place called The Crane, which is an old construction crane that has been converted into a very exclusive nightclub. And when I say exclusive, like I think maybe 45, 50 people can fit in there. So it was pretty crazy as well, because it was also a disaster, and it was amazing at the same time. And I'll explain what I mean. So, you know, the people that were in there were amazing. I had some great tunes. I was with some great people, and the sets were great. And it was my turn to go on. And as soon as I got on and I was set up, somebody kind of pulled on the power cable of my MacBook, and instead of unsnapping magnetically, it just pulled the whole computer down to the ground. And being a concrete floor, completely shattered the screen. So I picked it back up, and I sort of just like was trying not to, cut myself on the glass. And luckily it wasn't one of these new ones, because if anyone has broken a new one, the whole screen just completely disappears. In this case, it just shattered. So I went, okay, whatever, stay calm. You can kind of see stuff, I have to go like this. At least I have my controllers. And then somebody spilled a tray of water over all of my controllers. So I had to play. It was just, And at the same time, I was so excited, and it was such a crazy opportunity that I was like, I am not going to let anything ruin this. And the one thing about playing shows for over 20 years is I've done every kind of horrible situation. So I went, whatever. So I played the whole set with a shattered screen using my computer keyboard shortcuts. And, I was a little disappointed in just how I had to do it, because, I love live performing and stuff. But at the end, everyone was like, oh, that was so awesome. And the manager of Alza was like, I'm calling Sonny tomorrow, and I'm telling him how dope that was. So I was like, you know what? In the end, everyone enjoyed it. I enjoyed myself, and I had a good time. And then the next day I went and got some Gorilla tape and taped up my screen and played my next gig in Germany and went on with my life.
Wow.
Wow. What a story.
I would just be way too bummed, but good job for not letting that get you down. Cause you're right. That's just such a unique experience. So no need to let that just ruin the whole trip. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good story and message and persistence as well. And that comes with a breadth of experience like just knowing what to do in a situation like that on the fly and being able to perform like that and everyone have a good time and you have a good time. So thanks for sharing that story. That's so awesome. And we're so grateful to have you on Audius here. And we'd love to know what inspired you to join Audius and what do you like about Audius compared to some of the other platforms?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, as an audio connoisseur, the quality of streaming is what I really appreciate. I mean, everyone knows about the dreaded SoundCloud compression or the Spotify equalizing or all of this. And I really, really love the quality. And I think the interface is nice, but I think the community support, again, what inspired me? Well, just knowing Michael from Future and us sort of mutually supporting each other's projects and going, okay, here's a new platform. Let me check it out. Oh, cool. It's new tech. I'm always a new tech person. So I was kind of hooked. And then just the support over the years of the remix competitions and just the way that it's been integrated to inspire people from the community to, it's the opposite of a lot of platforms where it's like, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that. And here it's like, here are the stems, go crazy. And you can even see if the artist likes it. So I really feel like it's opened the door in so many ways. And I always prefer to show people my music on there, no lie, because of the quality. So I've really loved it. And also, I got me sort of into crypto a little bit when it was going, when the market was crazy. I was playing with my audio tokens and kind of learning about how that worked. And at the same time, doing some early NFTs again, before all the crazy scammers got in. And it was a really fun way to sort of learn about Web3 as well.
For me as well, before Audius, I didn't know that much about crypto. And I don't think Audius, we don't push crypto upon anyone, but we make it, I think, easier for people to understand crypto if they want to. I think it's a really nice launch pad for a lot of people. Let's see here. I've got the next question for you. So this one's kind of a weird one that I don't know, I'm sure we've all been seeing for years and years and years. So you look back at the electronic music world and there was dubstep that kind of shifted into trap. EDM originally was EDM. Now it's super mainstream in the pop world. Are there any other trends that you see? For example, I think trap is kind of going to wave now. Drum and bass is kind of picking up. What kind of trends do you see and what genres do you think are going to be at the forefront over the next couple of years?
Well, it's really fun to see drum and bass blowing up because, that's my roots. I was a drum and bass DJ exclusively and MC for 12 years before I got into left field. And I always felt like it didn't get its time in the sun in America in the same way. In Europe, it's still really big. So I like watching it come back. But I think overall, we've been moving towards what I would just call more intimate music. And you can see this in the mainstream with artists like Billie Eilish. And you can see the trend of ASMR and just being really close. And, maybe I'm being too psychoanalyzing about it, but I do think it's a symbol of people's longing for connection and intimacy. Everybody is tired of being behind these social media walls and being so distant, and they just want to feel close to someone and they want to have someone whisper in their ear. And so I see that as well just with playlists and listening at home. That's another thing. When I started out, you kind of listened to dance music in the club and maybe you had CDs and vinyl, but there wasn't really an avenue to just kick back and listen to super chill music. So I really love that this is having a day because I think for a long time I felt like I had to make super bangers all the time for the club. And now people are also starting to care about health, right? Which goes hand in hand with, okay, I don't need to be on 200% all the time and I don't need to be raging, and maybe I can sit on a terrace during the day and maybe I can even eat vegetables while I listen to, it's this more holistic thing and this way of looking at life. And it's funny, I sound like an old person, but at the same time, this is a way to be sustainable. And I like this trend because I don't like it when I see people that have just been completely ravaged by partying. And, I don't think anyone does. And I love it when people of all ages or all walks of life get into electronic music. So I think that now we are seeing this up close, more experimental, more genre blending, which is great because back in the day, it was almost like your army. Are you with the trance? Are you with the techno? Are you with the house? And now we can actually overlap and blend, and people are taking more experiments. And I really see that as a trend too.
That's so cool. Like what you said about just like reflecting the zeitgeist of the times, like with the more intimate music and how people are longing for connection, like especially in this climate today and, you know, the superficiality of social media. I think it's such a great time to be an artist and, you know, it's fun, you know, and liberating all this genre bending and even the more chill stuff like the ambient. And this actually leads me into my next question, which is it's so incredible that you've also released music on ambient compilations, you know, with the late great Ryuichi Sakamoto, Sigur Rós, and Imogen Heap. By the way, I love Imogen Heap. She's one of my favorite artists. And I just love to know more about the process of creating the music for this compilation.
Yeah, I mean, that was an absolute honor. And it's weird because I wrote it during the pandemic when we were all locked up, and this compilation was a benefit for mental health, spearheaded by Matt Black and Ninja Tune. And I think at the time I hadn't quite gotten into this mentorship relationship, and I was just doing a lot of licensing music. I did some music for their apps, and he kind of asked, hey, do you ever make ambient music? And this was a beautiful thing for me because I was sort of unwinding from the trauma of the music industry at that time. I was living in Spain, and I had been asked to fill a sabbatical teaching electronic music production and sound design by my dear friend Ben Canty, who is from the Zebler and Canty Experience. He's also a really great artist. And so that was kind of therapeutic for me to just sort of be away and actually not have the FOMO because there were no shows. So for me, it was, you know, I know it was a really horrible time for the music industry, but in some ways, I think for me and a lot of other artists, it allowed us to clear our minds and take that peace. And so the track I have on there is called Sonata of Solitude. And it's just me starting to find my roots again, because I love making beats, and don't get me wrong, like I will still just while out to hard trap like on a Saturday night on the dance floor if you give me the right setting. But I'm also like a lover of orchestral music, cinema, and down tempo. And when I gave myself the challenge, I said, all right, you know what? You're going to make something like this is ambient, so no beats. And talking about breaking patterns, my usual pattern with electronic music will be to make a beat and then make something around it. I always start at the beat. So in this case, I really had to challenge myself to start more with the atmosphere, with the quiet, with the silence, and kind of sculpt around that and try and find little moments to build tension without that. And it's funny because this is stuff I teach all the time when I teach this kind of stuff, but it was like listening to my own advice for once and going, all right, like sit with yourself, break your patterns, be quiet, be lovely, like take that contemplation and take everything that you're feeling and make something to connect with other people who are feeling lonely and shut in. So that was a really amazing process. I had no idea who was going to be on the compilation, so that was an even more amazing surprise. I'm definitely like fanned out when like Sigur Rós retweeted one of my tweets. I was like, oh. So
that's like life goals right there. I still have not had a chance to see them. They were playing a festival, but I got to the festival too late and just missed them. I was so sad. One day. Yeah, I live in Scandinavia now, so just saying, you can always come visit. We can find them somewhere. I'm going to take you up on that. Iceland is like the number one country I want to go to one day. I was looking up tickets; they've gotten more affordable, especially like just plane tickets in general for the music industry. Like people can actually like play shows affordably now. I was like trying to book shows the last couple of years, and it was just like it just didn't make sense. It wasn't sustainable. So it's nice to see, just everyone able to actually take these shows again.
And so, like, you know, we love to play like released tunes as well as unreleased tunes, like exclusive alpha here on the Behind the Beats show. So do you have any unreleased songs that you would like to share with our wonderful Audius community here today?
Yeah, I've got so much stuff that's just on pause because, I mean, not only are they unreleased, but I finally decided to split into new projects. And I say projects with an S because I think for a long time when I was concerned with metrics and reach, I was too scared to try and split my work up because I was having so much trouble just keeping up with one social media and one artist identity. And now I'm almost inhabiting them like characters. So I wanted to share a new project that I have. It's called Ellipse, and it's going to sort of be for the more experimental, dreamy / dark pop side of me, which is a more lyrical side. And it's almost coming back to my roots because I've always sang and written songs, but it got pushed further and further and further to the back with dubstep. And I was kind of tired of just writing intros and like before the drops. And I wanted to do an album that was more like sound designy and yet compositional at the same time. So yeah, this is one of the tracks off of my almost finished Ellipse album.
Ooh.
Can't wait to hear it.
Let's take a listen. When do you think that's coming out? Is it too soon to say?
Well, it's kind of just been almost ready for so long. I think I just have to do the last 10% of mixing, and then I want to take my time finding a good home for it because I'm also going to do visuals and video stuff, which is what I've been getting into recently, doing like 3D and generative and reactive visuals. So maybe at this point, I would say like beginning of next year would be a very safe estimate, you know, and see how that goes.
Well, let's hear this one. I'm going to play it right now. That was great. I like that. I don't know if I can wait 9 months to hear the rest of it though. So see what happens there. I don't know if you can quite use the whole Ill Gates 45 minutes for a song strategy there though either.
Your voice is so beautiful, and the songwriting and just the lushness of that track, like it's transcendent. Like I feel transported. So thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem. Thank you.
It's so incredible how like talented and diverse you are. Like, because you're also a film scorer, and you're composing for a documentary entitled Beauty for the National Film Board of Canada. We'd love to know what is your process also like as a composer?
Yeah, that was I wish there was a more recent one. That was the most recent one I've done, but I've done a few things for them and for some other things. And for films, I love it because it's a totally different form of collaboration, but it's really about, instead of just having pictures in my head, having a literal picture in front of me and trying to have a light hand and just help sculpt the story. And the funny thing about scoring is you don't want to overdo it. You don't really want people to notice the music, because usually people notice the music when it's wrong or when it's too much or when it's bad. You just want them to be wrapped up in the story. And I think as well, like being a crazy, like back in the glitch hop days, back in the hyper edited days, I was so obsessed with doing the most edits and doing the most crazy stuff. And now with film scoring, you free yourself of that, because if you do too much crazy stuff, then it's going to take away from the story, from the dialogue. So it becomes about a simple motif, a simple like thing that just can touch your heart. And so if you've ever seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is just one of my favorite funny movies, there's a composer in it, and it's a big joke that he just kind of like leans on the keyboard and just plays like one note. But on a larger scale, it's not entirely untrue, because sometimes you have to really pare down to a couple of strategic notes to get that sort of tension. So I really try to get the vision of the filmmaker and just be on that same page, and then move outward from there. For Beauty, which is a really nice short documentary about gender fluid children, I really looked at the personality of each one of the kids and sort of gave them their own themes, their own instrumentation, and their own style, and then sort of weaved that together as the scenes were changing. And it was just super fun experience, because instead of doing a lead, doing a drop, I'm really just sort of illustrating a character and just filling out a picture. So it is a different process, but it's very meditative in that way.
That sounds like a very meditative process, and just immersing yourself in the story. It must be such a thrill for the brain, to deep dive into all those stories and compose for that. So thank you for sharing.
I was saying I gotta watch Forgetting Sarah Marshall again. It's one of my favorites, but I don't remember him. I don't remember the notes that he was playing like at all. I haven't seen it for a few years, but I remember I loved it. I want to pivot over. Well, it's not too much of a pivot, but I want to talk about Web3 and crypto. I remember Crypto Waves was one of your projects where you use literal cryptocurrency graphs to make music, right? And then you turn those into NFTs as well. It was a really big project though, so maybe you should kind of, if you don't mind, give people a breakdown of what Crypto Waves was, and maybe like what else you're doing at Web3.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, to be honest, I've kind of paused on it because I do feel like we're experiencing this thing, and this is a very I'm old reference, but there was the whole .com thing of the 2000s where like a lot of businesses kind of blew up, and then everybody tried to make money off it, and then it collapsed, and then it rose again and became more sustainable. And I sort of feel like we are in a bit of that stage, because I was fortunate enough to, be working with Audius, and also just to meet certain people when I was in Spain that got me into the idea of NFTs, which I really liked in the purity of, hey, this is another way for an independent artist to connect with their fans, and maybe in a more personal way too. So I was really exploring like, how could I do something different? Because to me, just selling a song as an NFT was not personally as exciting for me as doing a very like, abstract kind of project that was very special just to that space. And one of the things about crypto and in general, I've always wanted to learn a bit more about finance, and we'll leave my politics off of the show, but let's just say that like my parents are fairly left-wing, and they've always been sort of against making money. And I'm not exactly what I would call a capitalist, but I also, have been a musician living in this world, trying to find ways to get by. And so I was excited just to learn more about it, because I like to learn about everything, whether I like it, whether I don't like it. I like to understand how things work. And when I got into learning about crypto and the finance market, it really struck me that these graphs, these finance charts, are really emotional portraits of large amounts of people. They're showing people's fear, their greed, their different trajectories through life, and like how they're trying to suss each other out as well. And I thought, wow, that also happens to look like a waveform. And being a synth nerd, I thought, well, what if I turned this into a wavetable? What would it sound like? And what was really interesting was, I took 4 of the major currencies at the time, was Bitcoin, Ethereum, Uniswap, and Dogecoin, and they each really did have their own sound because of the nature of how people buy it and sell them. Bitcoin was a little bit more of a steady full tone because it doesn't tend to go so crazy most of the time, whereas Dogecoin is more of a meme, so it kind of goes up and down, and it had a very spiky and sparkly sound, which sort of went with the meme to me. And so it started out like that, just saying, like, what can I make? And then it turned into the challenge of, let me make a whole song only using a Dogecoin waveform, only using a Bitcoin one, only using that. And after that, I started actually reading about finance in crypto terms, and I thought, this all sounds like a sci-fi story. Like, there's these terms like atomic swap, or, and like black swan, and all these finance terms that to me just gave me this image. And I started constructing this character called the orphan block, which is another crypto term. And she was floating in the middle of outer space, and it turned into lyrics about it, which went over these songs, and then even a music video. So it kind of became a whole concept project that was super meta, just about the emotions if all of this data was brought to life, and how you would still connect. And so we, of course, sold a lot of Dogecoin memes because people love memes. But it's still very special to me, because I think, like I said, for many years I was trapped in this music industry. Like, I have to do it for the club, and this really freed me up to say, "Ooh, actually, I'm just going to do something weird and interesting." Because instead of, I want this to be the most sales, because really each NFT goes to one person. I was like, I want this to be the most compelling and interesting and off the cuff thing that I could possibly do. So I'm kind of waiting for all of the scams to blow away and for things to just calm down a bit. I think it's starting to happen already, but I'm definitely interested in experimenting more. And I've really enjoyed working with platforms like Catalog, really supporting artists and other things like that. What I don't enjoy is the whole clone of the regular music industry that has sprung up of like, super famous person does an NFT and it sells for a lot. Shocking, so I could just leave that part personally forever. But I'm definitely into just really cool, interesting ways of taking ownership of your art and exchanging it with people. And that was the spirit I liked. And that is the spirit I hope to reconnect with, and when things have calmed down a little bit.
Plus that whole project and story and idea behind everything is pretty timeless. Like, even depending on the markets being, what they are, or scams, like, that's still going to live on for a very long time. So love that project, by the way.
Yeah, it's true. Like, it's like the Gartner hype cycle, like what you were saying, Alicia, is like we're in the trough of disillusionment. But like, I think it's good because it levels out, I think, people that, were just there for the greed versus like people like you that like really saw the potential, like see the potential in Web3 and the technology, like you're saying, of ownership, and it's so creative what you're doing. So we're approaching our final segment of the show, but before we do, we'd love to play another tune of yours. So we're thinking of playing This Perfect Mirror, which is a collab with Underbelly. So I can't wait to play it.
Awesome.
This is a letter from the dark side. Go back in time, right to yourself. Just take a breath and try to stand up before you melt on someone else. Better to jump in freezing water be here. And now we taste the air so clearly, like it's the first time we're outside. Just take a breath and try to stand up. There's nothing there, nowhere to hide. All of these sidewalks shining brighter reflect the joy within ourselves. Get lost inside these perfect mirrors. So many things are clearer. Now fuck it all, just be here. Why do we always fall? Tell yourself it's not my fault, not my fault. Why do you always fall? Just chasing our flavor, just chasing our flavor, just chasing our flavor, just chasing our flavor, just chasing our flavor.
Just chasing our flavor.
Don't try to get at me, immune to that craze. I'm feeling myself so, don't stand in my way. I'm chasing a flavor, just chasing a flavor, just chasing a flavor. No, no. Don't try to get at me, immune to that craze. I'm feeling myself so, don't stand in my way. I'm chasing a flavor, just chasing a flavor, just chasing a flavor. Don't try to get at me, immune to that craze. I'm feeling myself so, don't stand in my way. I'm chasing a flavor, just chasing a flavor, just chasing a flavor. Oh.
That had 90 or has had 90 remixes on
Yeah.
that.
I was just going to say, I can finally hear it again because in the remix.
I don't know, 100%. There was like a 2-week period, especially you, because the way that you judge remixes is one of my favorite ways because you break it down in so many different segments instead of like, people just saying like, this is one of my favorites. You actually like have an equation with everything, which we try to use for a lot of our remix contests, or at least to advise people to judge that way because it's a much more efficient way. It's a lot more work and a lot more time when you have so many remixes, but I think it's a much more fair process when you have a team of people voting on it.
I truly think that, if somebody, the least I can do is if somebody takes the time to do a remix is to give them a listen. That's sort of the EDMP philosophy in general.
Totally. It's such a testament to how like dope of a tune it is, like having like 90 remixes and like the diversity of it as well. So, like the melody's so strong. I just love it. So finally, I would love to conclude this Behind the Beats interview with 2 things. So firstly, a rapid fire round of questions, followed by what we call like the golden nugget advice for our Audius community. So are you ready for the rapid fire round?
Let's go.
So I'm going to start it off. Drum and bass or dubstep?
Oh gosh, how about halftime?
EDM or classical music?
Let's go with classical.
Keytar or MPC?
Oh, keytar all the way. Come on, you knew that one.
No, yeah. Hans Zimmer or John Williams?
Hans Zimmer, I would say, but also like he needs to give more credit to the people who are working under him. So shouts out to Hans Zimmer's Slave Camp.
PC or Apple?
Hackintosh.
That's where like you get Windows on a Mac? Or no?
Yeah, and I've done that for years because I love Apple's OS. I don't like their gatekeeping and their price keeping, so I build my own.
That is so badass. Okay, you're on a desert island and you can only take 3 musical items with you besides a computer to create music. What are those 3 musical items?
Wow. Okay. So I guess I would take a field recorder to get all the amazing Foley that would be going around me. And I would take probably Vital. It's my favorite synth, and I like that it's free, and I like the interface. And then the third thing would have to be some kind of piano, maybe a guitar if it was a magic solar powered guitar, because I'm a piano player at my root, and that's just how I create.
That's so original, solar powered guitar. I mean, they should invent that anyway. All right, now on a more serious note, what advice do you have for upcoming artists, especially in our Audius community? You know, if they're looking to improve their music production skills, book some gigs, and just release music in general.
Well, definitely, I can't overemphasize collaborating and being part of a community in general. Like, some of the stories I've told, a lot of the things that I have accomplished have come from reaching out and sort of opening my heart. And instead of just approaching music with the philosophy of it's me against everyone else, it's the opposite of that. It's you with everyone else, and work with as many people as you can without worrying about who they are. Because this is something that really irks me in the community like now, is back in the day, it used to just be, hey, I like your music, I like yours too, let's work together. When Anti-Serum and I got together, it was a very improbable collaboration because he was like hard Bay Area dubstep and I was just this little whatever Vancouver girl, but he liked my music and I liked his. And then nowadays I see people saying, oh, let me consult my branding manager. And in the end, it's just so ick, because first of all, you never know who somebody's going to become. You never know. If you just really love their music and you believe they're talented, just work with them. One of my favorite collabs with a 17-year-old Australian kid. I've still never seen his face or heard his voice. He was an autistic kid who was on my Discord, and we made a track together, and it got onto like a new retrowave YouTube channel, and it's one of my biggest tracks on YouTube. And if I had said that I don't want to work with this person, I don't have the time for the person, I would have never had that experience. So just really do that, because a lot of these things, yeah, there is networking. Yeah, some people have opportunities and have money, and there's a lot of icky things about the industry, but there is still ways to connect with people organically and lift up each other. So take the time to support your friends, take the time to support people you don't even know in a Discord community. Just be around and be loving and be genuine, because it sounds so dorky, but it's everything I've ever done has been because of that, and still continues to be that way.
That's like truly golden advice. Amen. Yeah, for sure. Finally, what is the legacy you would like to be remembered for? I know that's like a big question, but you've done so much.
Well, it's funny. I love when people connect with my music, but I have to say being called Rave Mom has been something I've really enjoyed. I think just being remembered as being that person who gives people love and who gives people support and inspires people to create themselves. I did this for years with sample packs, with tracks, with workshops, and now I'm really, really lucky to be creating a new sound design department, and I'm working at Lego, and it's just like a new honor for me to inspire kids with sounds. And I think my legacy hopefully will just be to continue getting the joy of sonic bliss into as many people's hands as possible and inspire them to create and go outside the box. And now literally they can go outside the box. So that's pretty neat.
That's so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being on this show. That is all the time we unfortunately have for today. But, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that wisdom and all your stories.
Oh,
yeah, thank you so much. That was really, really cool. Just getting to hang out and chat and learn so much more about you.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap for Audius Behind the Beats podcast. So we'll be dropping ill-Esha's social handles and links in the comments and description. Stay tuned for our next podcast. The Audius team have been working behind the scenes to bring you a new experience for Behind the Beats. We'll be back on a regular cadence very soon with full video. Until next time, keep vibing, keep thriving, and keep creating. Behind the Beats is a production of Audius Music, hosted and edited by Sam McFly. Theme music by Caption, executive producers Julian Baker and Michael Tully.